Comedian Paul Reiser is best known as the creator, writer, and star of the sitcom Mad About You. He's been ranked number 77 on Comedy Central's list of 100 greatest stand-ups of all time, and he's bringing his national comedy tour to the Ponte Vedra Concert Hall on Saturday, November 19th. We're so excited to have you here. Thanks for joining First Coast Living.
Pleasure to be here. Yes, voted number 77. It's such a specific number. And people think this is petty, but what I do is I drive by the homes of number 78 and 79, and I just kind of, stick it to them a little bit.
I love
Makes
that.
me
Well,
feel
you know
better.
what?
Yeah.
I love double numbers, and seven's a lucky number anyway. So I think you got a great number there. But let's start from the beginning, Paul, really quickly. What or who inspired you to become a comedian?
When I was a kid, I just kind of was drawn to it. I don't know. I just, when as a kid, we would watch the Ed Sullivan Show, first for the Beatles, but then over the years, I found myself watching and loving comedians. And then when I was in high school, I kind of got into George Carlin and Robert Klein and Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner records. And, there's something, I think all of us who do it are drawn for some bizarre reason beyond our control.
Right. Well, 2022 has been a very busy year for you. So exciting with lots of projects. Of course, one of my favorites, Stranger Things.
Yes.
But tell us about some of the most recent things you've been working on.
Well, the newest thing, I've been working on this show called Reboot, which is on Hulu, and it is really funny. And we shot it a few months ago. All episodes are up now. And it is about this phenomenon where shows reboot 20, 25 years later. And in this case, it's not about the sitcom that's being rebooted. It's about all these characters who are sort of getting a second chance to reboot their lives. And it's really fun. It's created by Steve Levitan, who co-created Modern Family. And it's got just a crazy good cast of Keegan Michael Key and Johnny Knoxville and Judy Greer, Rachel Bloom, and just really funny people. And people are really enjoying it as soon as they find it. And I keep hearing such really rave reviews. So hopefully we'll get to make some more.
Yeah. And what about the Kaminsky method? I haven't seen that yet.
You haven't seen it,
No.
And yet you have the audacity to call me at home. Yes, the Kaminsky method. Well, that was up and running, and I joined them for season 2, and that was just a thrill. Michael Douglas and Alan Arkin were the original stars, and then Alan Arkin didn't join for this 3rd season. But that was just a great show and beautifully written, and it's really about getting older and about guys' friendship between men, which is a very bizarre thing. Men are not as well equipped to be friends as women are. Women take to it much more easily. I know I'll go out with a buddy of mine, and my wife will say, I'll come home. She said, well, what'd you guys talk about? I said, well, how's his wife feeling? I went, that didn't come up. How's his kid doing? I didn't ask. I was like, well, what did you talk about? I don't know. No, we didn't talk about anything of substance. I'll tell you that.
I do that with my husband as well. I'll be like,
yeah,
asking
what is
individual questions, like more specifically, and he'd be like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like,
yeah, no. Well,
I guess that's normal.
You're better people is what it is.
Okay, this is really cool. So Mad About You got revived in 2019. What was it like coming back after all these years with Helen Hunt?
Well, it was really kind of surreal, because Helen and I had remained friends, and we were close, and we had gotten together all the time over the 20 years since the show ended in 1999. And we were both very clear that we would never, ever be tempted to come back and do a reunion or a reboot, because I don't really like reboots, even though I'm on a show called Reboot. To me, anytime you get a group together, or sometimes they'll have a show and they'll bring back the cast from 30 years ago. To me, the only purpose of that is so people at home can go, whoa, he put on a lot of weight. Whoa, she had some work done. It's like a circus. It's like a freak show. So I didn't ever want to be a part of that. But what happened was we were, excuse me, everybody was doing all these reboots. So we got approached by the studio. So Helen and I had to think about it. And we thought, well, it'd really be fun to do it once. Let's just to play together. And what happened was so strange. We got the whole cast together and we recreated the set. And you walk into that pretend living room that you spent 7 years in, and suddenly it was like we had not been gone maybe a weekend. You know, it did not feel like 20 years later. We just fell into place.
Wow. And Mabel going off to college. So kind of full circle, right? Tying it up.
Yeah, well, that was sort of the reason that the deciding factor, that we didn't know what was the reason to come back. And we thought, well, 20 years later, the infant that we had at the end of the show is now moving out and we're alone again. And that was always the heart of the show. What are these two people like? Two people in four walls. What is that dynamic? And we thought, that's really interesting now, because we're the same people, but we're older. We're not the same people, and we're not newlyweds. And the little beautiful baby turned out to be quite a handful. And we don't hear as well, and we walk slower. And we thought that's a really interesting place to write. You know, and a lot of my stand-up, when I do my shows, I always tell people I'm not smart enough to make anything up. So I just talk about what happens. But when you talk about what's happening in, you know, your family and your marriage and your kids and getting older, audiences are laughing because they're going, oh man,
relatable.
Same here. So that's what I love about getting out and doing stand-up. Is like you actually see faces. It's not Zoom. There are actually people in seats.
What advice do you have for future comics?
Don't do it.
Don't come on.
It's so funny. I was talking to a comedian who's quite successful now, and he told me this story, which has really made me laugh, that when he was in college, he saw me at a club. This is in the 80s. And he came over to me and said, you know, I'm thinking of doing stand-up. What advice would you give me? And I said at the time, just do it. And when he told me that, I said, well, that's kind of flip. And he said, but it was really smart, because there is no shortcut. You know, I had taken a long time off. I didn't do stand-up for 20 years. Not really on purpose. I just kind of got busy, and then I was staying home after Mad About You. And when I went back a few years ago, it was, you had to really start over. I had to retrain the muscle and the brain, and I would go to clubs. I would just walk into comedy clubs and just go on stage. And young comics would go, oh, what are you doing here? You don't need to do this. Why you must be working on an HBO special or something, or a Netflix special. No, this is, why are you doing this? I said, well, this is how you do it. You come in every night and you do it. And so, you know, I love that it changes every night. You think you got it just right, and then it's like juggling 27 different balls in the air. And Florida, I always have a great time in Florida. It's just, I don't know why, but there happen to be great comedy audiences. And I've been to the beautiful theater in Ponte Vedra before. So looking forward to being back.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so fun.
Thank you. And if you come to the show, come say hello.
Definitely. And
all right.
Happy holidays to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
And if you'd like to see this segment again, just head to our website at firstcoastliving.net.